Leadership isn't built on authority, it's built on connection. In our latest episode of Let's Be Honest, Chaos and Clarity in Education, we're joined by Mrs. Sajida Abdul Karim, an accomplished educational leader and mentor whose career has been dedicated to developing principles, strengthening school culture, and helping leaders lead with purpose. Together we explore why authentic relationships are the foundation of effective leadership.
All right, welcome to another episode of Let's Be Honest podcast, where we have chaos and clarity in education. We have today an amazing guest. Actually, let me just say that she was my second principal when I came to the United States to teach in the early 2000s, Mrs. Majida Abdul Karim. I'm Dr. Linton Atkinson.
And I'm Dr. Nash.
And I'm Majida Abdul Karim.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here with both of you as the host for the evening so we can get some chaos cleared.
So, Ms. Karim, your educational journey was inspired by your mother. What did she teach you that continues to shape the leader you are today?
So many things on so many levels. And just to contextualize it, I was a young woman at the City College of New York, and I wanted to be a radio broadcaster. I grew up in a household that was very much affirming of who I was as a young Black woman. And so everything around me echoed that. I had a professor who was the head of the department at that time. He felt as though I was way too opinionated in regards to my angles in reporting media. And I thought it was the voice that needed to be heard because mainstream media did not include our voices enough for me. And so we battled consistently. And I said, I have to figure out what I'm going to do. This man is the head of the department. He's my professor. I don't particularly care for him. And I knew he didn't care for me. And this wonderful woman that I call my mother said, well, you should consider education. I said, no way. She said, yeah, you need to consider. I said, there's no way. Needless to say, I took her advice. And 30 plus years later, here we are having this conversation. So she came from a community that was connected, very much so connected. There was a movement called the Ocean Hill-Brownsville Fight for Community Control, where they stood up against system and felt as though community should have voice in the education of children. And that led to the heavy formation of community school boards as we know them today. So when we talk about the whys and the whos, it started in my household as well as the community that I was in. She put me on an educational trajectory initially as a teacher, and I was a teacher for about 9-10 years, segued into leadership, and then here I am based on that suggestion. Why don't you be a teacher? Me adamantly saying, absolutely not, and then being wise enough to clear my chaotic mind to listen to the wisdom that was in front of me.
So let's say that 30 plus years later, we're still happy your mom gave you that advice.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you spoke of connection. So when you think of connection, right? Why is it so essential to effective leadership?
Oh my. Because that will shape the culture of the school in which you're in, right? Have you ever had a child, either the one that you birthed or one that you knew, and they will say, I don't feel connected to you, right? It's like two aliens in the same place, and you are not able to receive the outcomes that you want because there is a lack of connection. Connection to me means feeling seen, being heard, hearing and doing, right? And the issues of value. And we know that people feel seen, feel heard, and value, they tend to prosper and flourish. And if you don't have connection, then sometimes the opposite can happen. There's an old African adage, when children don't feel the warmth of the village, they shall burn it down.
Fantastic. And I would like to continue that dialogue on connection. So you've become a mentor to countless educators yourself. What distinguishes active membership from simply giving advice?
Knowing that you're really there for them and they are not just a name, title, or a statistic, right? We're so much into metrics, into outcomes, but I actually see you. You can call me about those things that you can't talk to anyone else about. As you will know, having sat in the seat and you're currently in the seat, leadership could be a very lonely journey. You can doubt yourself. You don't always trust everyone, right? So to build the trust, I am not your evaluator. I'm one to try to help you do what you do better, to assess who you are as a leader, see the systems that you need to put in place to elevate the things that you might lack, and what are the things that you lack, and what can we do about that? So to build trust with the person that you're talking to let them know you're not there to evaluate them. You want to help them leverage the good that they already have, assess what they need to work on, and give them some strategies to make it happen.
And that speaks to accountability, because many leaders struggle to balance accountability with the relationship building. Now, how have you learned to challenge people while still making them feel valued and supported? Feel free to share how one of your leaders exemplified any of these attributes.
Yeah, sometimes in building, especially as new leaders. So just to be clear, I work with 0 to 3 new leaders, right, in their process. Why? Because the statistics show that 50% of them leave after the 3rd year, right? Because their support systems are actually not in place. Sometimes we want to friend people first, right? And we think that's the building trust, as opposed to having criteria of accountability, right? And to respect the human that you're dealing with, right? So you want to over-friend, thinking that you're building trust, and let things slide. Absolutely not. Because again, as the leader, you're going to be the first one to go. The first one to go. And then questions will be asked later. I have found in my process and in dealing with the leaders that I deal with, in that if you are consistent, right? People may not always like you, right? This is not a I like you party. This is a being fair. This is about being equitable. This is about doing what's right by children, right? And then when they are clear about your clarity that you get, folks will always, and I don't want to say fall in line because that appears to be so militaristic, but you understand what I'm saying. Folks will do what you exemplify, what you find is important, and will model accordingly. Because sometimes you're torn, especially sometimes if you have friends that are in your school community. That's a whole nother kind of conversation.
See, what you just said just brought back memories, because that's just the type of leader you were, a no-nonsense leader, Dr. Nash.
Awesome.
She stood in business.
That's a good thing.
And thank you so much. If we could just go a little deeper when it comes to like mistakes that new leaders typically make. But what are some of the biggest mistakes they make when trying to build trust with their staff?
For not assessing their staff. The first thing you need to do is to find out who does what, the skill set that they have, right? Have conversations about, just like how you're asking me, how would you handle this? Give them scenarios, okay? And then one of the biggest thing I find in new leaders, they don't know themselves. They don't know themselves, right? So a lot of times they may go through a leadership training program and then they're kind of left alone to figure it out. So you prepare, but when you're really in it, it is hard to execute, right? So what type of leader are you situationally? And I'll give you an example. I was trained by a school leader who was absolutely phenomenal, had many years underneath her belt, okay? We had about 850 students in our middle school. When I came to Isaac Newton, where Dr. Linton was a teacher, it was a smaller school, right? It was like a mini school. And sometimes we tend to mimic good leadership based on the models that we have. Everything that she did would not necessarily fit into what I had, right? So how do you shift and pivot your leadership according to the situation that is in front of you? A lot of times as leaders, initially, we don't know ourselves, so we don't know what we need, right? I hate paperwork. When I tell you I hate paperwork, so what does that mean for Majida Abdul Karim? have a system in place where you get that paperwork done or have someone do that paperwork for you. I love connecting to the people. I love conversations. I love observations. I love critical conversations for growth and clarity. I love the people part of it. But then going back and writing that stuff up I hate that, right? So knowing you surround people around you that can highlight and elevate the things that you don't like to necessarily do yourself. Assess where you are. What are the needs of your school community, right? If you're not necessarily a big data person, have that data person really close to you. For smaller schools, we can't have 3 assistant principals. So how are you going to create these quasi positions, right? Based on the budget that you have to get done what you need to get done. How are you advocating for yourself with the superintendent that you have? I remember also having interview for a school. They called me about 5 times and say, you got it, right? And based on the school, I said, well, I would like to bring someone in with me because they had gone through 3 principals in 1 year. That speaks volumes. How do you protect yourself, right? So when they told me I could not bring someone in with me, someone who was sharp that could help me in this, I would say, challenging situation, and I wanted to take it, right? Because I'm not scared of a challenge. They said, no, just you. And I said, well, no, I will not take the job. So you have to learn how to advocate for yourself because you will be on the chopping block, that person to fill a gap that the district might need. You will go first. You will go first. You will go first. So advocate for yourself, know who you are as a leader, and know who you need to have around you to help you get the job done that you need for the specific school in which you're going to serve.
Absolutely. It's one thing when someone sets you up for failure, but it's another when you set yourself up for failure.
But sometimes people don't know. You see what I'm saying? They're not, you're so new, you just want to get in there and engage. And unfortunately, every situation is not the same in terms of cultivating your genius, protecting you as a leader, providing supports that you need to grow and thrive. No, you're a placeholder. And we need a principal in this building because we had 3 already. It's you. Learn, you can say, no, I'm not going to take that. Not now. Leadership is not always, a lateral move. It looks different at different times. I can speak to that also. Speak
to it.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Do you remember how long I was at Newton? Do you remember?
I think maybe 1 or 2 years.
Exactly. Do you know why?
I know you were trying to bring about some great changes, but it was not as welcomed. And I know that you had brought in, you just said something that you did. You actually brought your own secretary with you as well.
So there were several things but that's not why I left, because we made a phenomenal strides.
We did make some phenomenal strides, but it was not without fight.
The scores is looking good even after 1 year. And it takes at least 3 years to transform something. So my mother was gravely ill. Okay. My mother was gravely ill.
Yes,
I was from Brooklyn.
Yes.
I was from Brooklyn, and Newton was in East Harlem.
Yes.
And so with a lot of her illness, I would get a lot of emergency calls, right, to tend to her needs. And so I said, wow, okay, what am I going to do here? Because this is not working in terms of proximity and distance. So I had to make the executive decision for my family life to go back to Brooklyn, right? So I could be closer to her. And so Jill Myers was our superintendent. She's like, please don't leave. And I said, listen, I have to, because this is just not working in terms of distance. Mm-hmm. So I just told you, I interviewed and there were schools available in Brooklyn, but I had to protect me, right? So at some point there weren't schools available, right? Mm-hmm. And so there was a brother who I had worked with. He was a principal, a phenomenal principal. It was a great school community. And someone else said, well, he has a vacancy at his school. It was Benjamin Banneker Academy for Community Development in Brooklyn. The principal at the time was Darryl Rock, right, who I'd worked with as a school leader. And he said, well, Majida, I don't have a principal because I'm here. He said, I have an AP position. So because of my mother, the same mother that said, listen, girl, you need to consider teaching, who was almost so ill to the point where she was almost dying, right? Came back to Brooklyn. He offered me the AP position. So I went from principal to AP, right? And it really wasn't a dig to my ego at all, because it was about the service, right? And it was about my situation, which was family. So as the creator would have it, that school happened to be 3 blocks from my home, okay? And then I wound up being the principal of that school anyway. So when you choose, you make executive leadership decisions, not just for your building, but for yourself and your family. The creator works it out the way it's supposed to be. So that's why I left, and that's what happened to me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, man, what a story.
Yes.
So I'd like for you to speak to how leaders can make students and staff feel seen and heard.
Yeah, so there's so many different things. There's a book that W.E.B. Du Bois wrote called The Little Book of Brownies, and someone gifted it to me. And he has a 7-step protocol, and it's specifically for children of the sun, as they call it. And during those times, feeling like you were not human and subhuman, right, was the language of the day for Black children. However, though he said it was for Black children, he said it was for all children, right? So I'm targeting you, but it's for every child, no matter what shade you come in, white, yellow, brown, and Black, right? When you are intentional about saying, good morning, Dr. Linton, how are you? That alone, I spoke your name, right? I asked you how you were doing. Those simple things that you can do. How's your day going? How was your weekend? What is going on with you? We think sometimes it's so scripted and so theoretical. It does not have to be heavy and deep, right? How's your family? Those are the simple connectors, and really mean it, right? Because people know when you're putting a show on, right? I mean, really authentically mean something when you ask that question and then you engage. How many principals really know their staff? How many actually ask? Or can I see your lesson plans? And that's the language of the day. Never, how you doing today? How's it going? It takes me back to my principal who said, how's it going? And it's funny you asked that question. And that was my first year teaching. So it was a model classroom in regards to a new construct of having students who were struggling learners. They didn't have science. So it was a humanities class before we called it humanities. This was in 1994. So I taught them English language arts as well as social studies. I had personally social studies lead the curriculum, and then we have literature to match what was going on in regards to the curriculum map that was being used. And I remember the first 3 weeks of school, she said, how is it going? And I said, it's not going well, right? 2 things happened in that moment for me, reflecting on leadership. Number 1, tapping into your school community. How's it going? Me being honest and vulnerable enough to say it's not going well, right? Answering truthfully. And what she did was she had another teacher, because it was 7th and 8th grade. She had another teacher take the 8th grade students, and I would take that teacher's 7th grade students. So now you have 1 grade, which was a lot more manageable. So she asked, and she did something. She did something. She didn't ask to do nothing. She made the shift. And that one simple shift just changed the entire synergy of the classroom for me. Tap in. How are you doing?
So, Ms. Abdul Karim, I'm just curious. Who are the mentors you're still learning from today? And how has that changed your understanding of mentorship over the years?
Several. Well, my mother's still my mentor in the ancestral zone, because the lessons for me that I learned from her are continuously going on. That's number 1. I would like to call the name of Dr. Catherine Riley Corbett. who was my first principal, who I was under for 8 years, that one who stopped me in the hallway and said, "How's it going?" and made that quick shift for me. I would like to call the name of Dr. Lester Young, who has become the first chancellor for New York State, first Black man chancellor for New York State, who was my first superintendent that poured into me when I was a leader, that checked on me, when I was a leader that came to Newton and walked the hallways with me, when I was a leader that came to Banneker and came to my office consistently and always said, "Majida, how's it going?"
I know the name, Dr. Lester Young. Actually went to a conference recently and he was there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing leader.
Yes,
So,
he is.
what's one conversation with a student, teacher, or leader that you'll never forget because it reminded you of the power of connection apart from your first principal?
I would say when a leader came to me and said, "I can't do this anymore. It's just too much. I don't have the support." And I said, "I want you to bullet for me what you see as the challenge and what you want as the solution." And I said, "We don't have to do it right now. When I see you next week, have that list. And out of that list, what are the things that you can control? And what are the things that are out of your control? And let's come up with a strategy." And that person is still in place today.
Wow. What can you control? What's out of your control?
Could you share with us just one concern in education today that could potentially keep you up at night? If you can share with our audience why and how can it be solved?
Safety issues are always an issue for me, as most people. And then too, if we go back to the being seen, so I connect things because some safety to me can, in some instances, in many instances, be connected to what's going on in the classroom, as you know, right? In terms of pedagogical proficiency. And on the other side of that, students not feeling seen, who want to cause chaos, who are bored, who want to get into things, and then there not being enough systems and structures in place to deal with issues before, right? Not when, before they happen. And knowing that every staff member is eyes and ears. It's not, "Oh, that's school safety." No, that's you, me, us, all of us, right? That's their job. And so that goes to school climate and culture. Having a school community that's disconnected, where people just want to stay in their lanes, no overlapping for the good and the benefit of the total school. Those are the types of things that keep me, well, I'm not a principal anymore, that would kept me up at night. Or going to meetings, and y'all know how it is. You're away at a meeting, try to focus on a meeting, you get the text and somebody try to call you. And I say, if somebody is not dying, don't call me. You handle that, because what happens is you become the micromanager and the go-to for everything if you're not training people effectively to deal with challenges, whether they be little or small. Your life will be crazy. And this is a challenge that new leaders have too. You could be good in the area of diffusing and mediating, but if you don't have 2 or 3 people in your school village that could do the same, it's always going to be on you. And that is immediate burnout. So safety is the up at night things, but being so intentional, methodical to deal with issues before they present themselves.
Thank you.
So speaking of that, making sure you delegate, right? You're very busy.
Effective delegation is a must-have skill. Yeah, it's not a one, it's a must-have skill.
I can tell you my first year as a principal in 2015, I failed miserably because I did not delegate.
Yeah, but you're here. Yeah.
Here, we had to figure out how to succeed after that.
Yeah.
And you spoke about just making sure we take care of each other. But how do you take care of yourself to continue this work?
to say, let me breathe. Let me go in this office and just sit just for 1 second. I told you I'm a lover of the people and paperwork is my angst, right? But you have to lock that door. Nobody come in here. I need 10, 15 minutes. And be true to that, right? Such and such is here, but they're going to have to wait. And be true to that. You have to give yourself moments. You have to give yourself moments because schools are always this. Or come extra early to give yourself that moment before folks come in to watch how they come in the building, right? Don't walk in when everybody else is walking in. Give yourself the intentional time. I find that walking is so good. It clears your head, right? Those moments of pause where you can lock your door and you tell your staff, I'm locking, this is mine. No problem. We got you. You have to do those little things during the course of the day too. So you have to pause to re-engage powerfully, but give yourself those moments, those times, and be intentional about that. Be early, have some breakfast, have your tea, do whatever that is, but create a system in a routine where you have time for self in the midst of things going on. But however, I want to say this because this is important, because every principal is not like how I was or you all were. I'm just going to put that out there. Get up out of the office too. So don't take this as you need to don't be a chair warmer. Get out that office, know the beat of these classrooms, what's going on, have these children see you. Sometimes when you speak to young people that are in schools, I'd say, how often do you see your principal? Hardly ever. I'm shocked because you feel like a lot of people's experiences are who you are, right? It's like, how is it that you don't see your principal? They don't. Do you see another administrator? Not really. So I can tell there's no routines in that school to be in those classrooms, right? But as a school leader, you have got to give yourself time and you have to make people respect the time that you take for yourself.
Mrs. Abdul Karim, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and life lessons to both our novice and experienced leaders. And thank you so much for joining us on the Let's Be Honest podcast.
Okay, it's 15 minutes. All right, I love it. No, we were here for 30. It's a pleasure meeting you, Dr. Nash and Dr. Linton. Great seeing you again, my dear brother.